The story begins as we learn that the 7 million-year history of mankind is about to end, because the gods have grown tired of them, and the ruler of the gods, Zeus, asks for everyone's opinions in an assembly. They all agree that humanity should be wiped out, since they're wicked and hopeless creatures, so Zeus prepares to declare the extinction of mankind. But the Valkyrie Hilda suddenly interrupts him and tells everyone she's against it. The gods aren't happy that she disturbed their assembly, and they tell her she has no right to be there since she's just a half-breed god. She admits that humans are flawed creatures, but she reminds everyone about the law of Ragnarok, which allows humans to have the right to fight the gods over 13 rounds, to determine the fate of mankind for the next 1,000 years, and they'll be saved from extinction if they can win. But we learn that it has never been used before, since the gods think it's impossible for humans to defeat them. The gods laugh at her, and they think fighting humans would be a waste of time, since they don't stand a chance anyway. But she asks the gods if they're afraid they might lose, so Zeus decides that they'll fight it out against mankind, and he orders Hilda to pick the champions that will represent humanity, since she obviously wants to save them. The gods gather at the arena, and the watchman of the apocalypse named Heimdall announces the beginning of Ragnarok. He introduces Thor, the god of thunder, as the representative of the gods for the first round, and they're confident that he'll win, since he's the strongest Norse god. The Valkyrie Gaul is worried that he'll destroy their representative, but Hilda is confident that they can take him on, since she has chosen the strongest warrior of humanity. Heimdall introduces the representative of mankind, and the humans cheer as the mightiest hero of the three kingdoms named Lubu appears. Both sides prepare for battle, and as Lubu gets off his horse, his spear appears from the sky. Gaul wonders if he can defeat Thor, so Hilda tells her not to underestimate humans, and notes that the gods are looking down on them, so she wants to see the look on their faces after they lose the match. Heimdall blows the horn of the apocalypse, which signals the beginning of the match, but everyone wonders why both fighters still haven't raised their weapons. They walk towards each other, and we learn that both of them have defeated all of their opponents with a single blow, so they're confident in their abilities. Lubu strikes first, and Thor blocks it with his hammer, but Lubu manages to push him back, and everyone's impressed that he can match the power of a god. But Zeus knows that Thor still hasn't unleashed his full power, and he uses his lightning to charge up his hammer. He leans back as he prepares to strike, and the gods realize that he's fighting with his hammer, since he respects Lubu's strength. In a flashback, we see the angels of Asgard trembling as 66 frost giants launch a surprise attack, and one of them breaks the wall, so the gods start to panic. The knights arrive to take down the giants, but they're no match for them, and we learn that Asgard wasn't prepared, since the giants have never attacked as a group. They reach the castle walls, and the gods think they're doomed, but Thor suddenly comes out of the castle, and he wipes them all out with his hammer. But we learn that he didn't enjoy the fight, since the giants were no match for him, and the move he used to defeat them became popular with the gods. We return to the present, as Thor prepares to strike, and the gods are confident that the fight is over, since he's about to use his special move. He swings his hammer at Lubu, and it creates a massive blast of lightning, which makes Gaul think it's impossible to defeat the gods when they fight seriously. But Hilda tells her to keep watching, as Lubu suddenly recovers, and manages to cut Thor's chest. The gods can't believe it, since they never imagined that a human could injure Thor, but the warriors of the three kingdoms aren't surprised, because they know that Lubu is a beast. In another flashback, we learn that Lubu was born in Mongolia, and he started traveling at a young age in search of a worthy opponent. He makes his way around the entire Eurasian continent and defeats all of the opponents in his path. He becomes a warlord, and charges at the enemy forces head-on, but he wipes the floor with them, and he gains followers because of his tremendous strength. But after 30 years of traveling, he finally starts to lose it, realizing that he can't find anyone to be his match. So he gets bored of fighting, and allows the enemy forces to capture and execute him, since he no longer found life worth living. We return to the present, as Lubu clashes with Thor, and he's happy to have finally found a worthy opponent. But Zeus wonders how his weapon still hasn't crumbled, since he's using it to defend against Thor's hammer, but he realizes that it's because of the power of the Valkyrie. We learn that before Ragnarok began, Hilda already knew that even the greatest warriors of humanity don't stand a chance against the gods, since their divine weapons hold unimaginable power. She notes that human weapons would crumble if they're used against the gods, so Gaul falls into despair, but Hilda summons the 11 Valkyrie. She asks one of them named Rangriz if she knows about Thor's sacred items, so she notes that he has iron gloves that can withstand all attacks, as well as the hammer Mjolnir, which destroyed the frost giants. Hilda knows that they're OP, and notes that they can't defeat Thor unless they match his weapons, so she asks Rangriz to give up her body so that humanity can win the fight. We return to the present, as Lubu's spear glows, and we learn that Rangriz used the Valkyrie Valander technique to transform herself into a divine weapon. He manages to overpower Thor, and prepares to strike him down, so he blocks the attack with his glove. But we learn that Rangriz has the power to destroy any shields, and Thor's glove ends up breaking, which surprises everyone, since it's considered the greatest armor in the heavens. We learn that Mjolnir was said to be so overpowered that it could even destroy whole continents, and nobody was capable of wielding it, since nobody could handle its immense power, but Thor used the gloves to protect his hands. But now that one of them has been destroyed, the humans start to celebrate, since they think he can no longer use it. Lubu goes on the offensive, and Thor struggles to avoid his attacks, but everyone's shocked as Mjolnir starts to transform. They hear the sound of it beating as if it were alive, and Thor realizes that it has finally awakened, which gets Zeus excited. He reveals that the legend was misunderstood, since the gloves weren't made to protect Thor from Mjolnir, but to restrain his powers, so that he wouldn't crush it before it awakened. He removes his other glove, and he lifts Mjolnir with his bare hands. He unleashes his power, telling Lubu not to die, since he wants to enjoy their fight. The gods are excited to see him wield Mjolnir without holding back for the first time, and he suddenly throws it at Lubu, who barely manages to dodge it, and he prepares to counterattack. But Mjolnir comes back, so he uses his spear to avoid it, and as it returns to Thor, he uses the velocity from throwing Mjolnir to deliver a devastating blow. The gods recognize it as the move he used to defeat the world serpent, but Lubu smiles as he charges in and takes the attack head-on. An explosion covers the arena, and the humans are worried about Lubu, but they realize that he was able to block the attack, so they cheer for him, but they stop as they realize that his legs were broken, and as he falls to his knees, Zeus thinks the fight is over. But his horse suddenly rushes to his side, and Thor allows him to ride it so that he can continue their fight. But he struggles to get up since his legs are broken, and the humans cheer him on, so he forces himself to get up. The god Hermes wonders if it's against the rules, since it's supposed to be a one-on-one battle, but Zeus notes that the horse is just an extension of Lubu's body. Lubu talks to his horse, who agrees to put everything on the line to win the battle, and they start running around Thor, while Lubu prepares to use his special move. One of his disciples recalls the moment when he saw Lubu training, since he wanted to perfect his technique, and he broke countless spears as he continued swinging over the years. He finally masters his technique, which splits the sky in half, but we learn that he never used it against anyone, since all of his opponents were no match for him. We return to the present, as Lubu's disciples look forward to seeing him use his ultimate move, and he charges at Thor, who's excited to see what he can do. They both use their ultimate moves, and a pillar of light pierces the sky as they attack each other head-on. But Lubu gets overpowered, and Rangriz dies as his weapon is destroyed, so everyone realizes that it's all over for him. Lubu is happy that he finally found his match, and thinks about how he tried everything, but he still couldn't defeat Thor. He charges at Thor again, and he enjoys his final moments, as Thor delivers the finishing blow. Heimdall announces Thor as the winner, and the gods celebrate, while the heroes of the three kingdoms mourn Lubu's death, but they're glad that he died with a smile on his face. The gods start boasting about how humans can't defeat them, since they're the superior beings, and Heimdall tells Thor to follow him to the exit. But Lubu's disciples stop him, and they mention that their existence is meaningless without their master, telling Thor to let them join him. So Thor decides to grant their wish, and he wipes them out with a powerful blast of lightning, but he thanks them for serving as an offering to his friend Lubu. Gaul asks Hilda what will happen to Lubu and Rangriz, so she explains that Ragnarok is a battle of souls, and it's impossible to reincarnate someone whose soul has been destroyed. So they will be completely removed from existence, and Gaul is sad since they'll never see Rangriz again, asking Hilda if the battle is even worth it. So she tells Gaul they can't defeat the gods if they keep mourning, and reminds her that the fate of mankind depends on the result of the battle. As Hilda picks the next champion of humanity, Gaul starts to lose hope, since even Lubu was no match for the gods, but Hilda prepares file number 1 for the next fight. Everyone gathers for the second round, and Heimdall introduces the next representative of humanity, who turns out to be Adam, the first man to ever exist. The humans are amazed to see the father of all mankind, but the gods think he looks weak compared to Lu Bu, so they're confident that they'll win the second round. Heimdall notes that the greatest Indian god will be their next representative, but nobody enters the arena, so everyone becomes confused. Heimdall learns that there has been a last-minute change, and Hermes plays the violin as he enters the arena, revealing that Zeus will be the one to fight in the second round. The humans don't recognize him, and they wonder how he'll fight Adam, since he looks like he's too old to do anything. But he tells Hermes to hit it, so he plays Zeus's entrance music, as he suddenly becomes jacked, and the gods cheer for him, while the humans tremble as they realize who he is. Gaul wonders why he's fighting in the second round, since he's supposed to be the final boss, and Hilda becomes nervous, since she never expected him to fight Adam. We see a few moments earlier, as Shiva prepared to enter the arena, excited for his fight, but Zeus stops him, and tells him that it's his turn instead. Shiva tells him to leave, since he wants to fight in the second round, but Zeus shows him his strength, so Shiva becomes intimidated, and he gives in to Zeus's demand. Back in the present, Zeus tells Adam he doesn't stand a chance without a divine weapon, but he points to the Valkyrie above him, who jumps off her Pegasus. She uses Volander as she merges with Adam, and she transforms into his knuckle duster, but he wonders why Zeus doesn't have a weapon, telling him he'll regret fighting without one. He becomes upset hearing this, and charges in at the speed of light, but Adam still manages to dodge him. The humans go wild, but the god of war Ares thinks they shouldn't celebrate just because Adam dodged Zeus's attack. Zeus decides to stop holding back, and he starts attacking Adam with ridiculous speed, but he still can't hit him, even though his attacks keep getting faster. He praises Adam for dodging all of his attacks, but tells him he can't win by just running away, so he mentions that he already knows that, and suddenly uses Zeus's own move against him. He can't believe what he's seeing, as Adam humiliates him by using his own combo against him, and the gods are stunned that he was able to hurt Zeus. Gaul realizes that he's amazing, and admits that she underestimated him, so Hilda reminds her that Adam was created in God's own image, which explains why he can easily copy Zeus's techniques. Zeus mentions that he's having fun, but he suddenly starts moving his feet, and Ares realizes that he's planning to end the fight with a kick. He starts moving around Adam, who uses his eyes to observe Zeus's movements, and dodges his attack. Adam copies his footwork and kicks him away, and he notes that he doesn't like fighting, but he knows that he doesn't have a choice since they're in a competition. Zeus becomes angry and gets even bigger, and he challenges Adam to copy his next move, which makes the gods realize that he's about to get serious. In a flashback, we see Zeus as he defeats the other gods in a tournament, and becomes the most powerful god in existence. But we learn that his father Cronus was the only one who was able to hit him, since he didn't see his attack coming. We return to the present, as Zeus uses Cronus's move, and he stops time as he charges at Adam with immeasurable speed. But Adam still manages to counter him, and as time resumes, everyone's stunned as they see Zeus on the ground, wondering what happened, since they didn't see anything. Ares reveals that he's been able to keep up with everything, even though the other gods are struggling since Zeus and Adam are moving too fast. But when Zeus used Cronus's move, he didn't see anything, and he was surprised to see his father's head twisted in an instant. Hermes explains that Adam copied Cronus's move to counter Zeus, but Ares asks him if he's sure, since he couldn't understand what happened even though he's the god of war. Heimdall announces that Zeus has been knocked out, and Gaul can't believe that Adam could defeat Zeus by copying his powers, so Hilda explains that his hatred for the gods is the source of his strength. We see that when Adam lived in the Garden of Eden, he had everything that he needed, but the gods accused his wife of eating the forbidden fruit. But we learn that the serpent falsely accused her, since he wanted to have her for himself, and she remained faithful to Adam. The gods immediately believe him, so they banish her from the garden, and she cries since she'll never see Adam again. But a guard suddenly enters the court, and he crashes to the ground, as Adam makes his entrance. The gods are surprised to see him holding a basket of the forbidden fruit, and the serpent tells him he has no right to be there, but he starts biting into the apples, which surprises the gods. But he realizes that they taste sour, so he spits them out after each bite, and tells Eve he's leaving the garden with her. But the serpent transforms to fight Adam, since he doesn't want them to have a happy ending. He tries to attack him with his claws, but Adam uses his ability to copy the move, and tears the serpent to shreds. He tells Eve it's time to build their own paradise, so they leave the courtroom and descend to Earth. We return to the present, as the humans celebrate since Adam was able to defeat Zeus, and Heimdall is about to announce him as the winner, but Zeus suddenly gets back up. He notes that the fight isn't over yet, and turns his head back into place, so the gods cheer for him, but Hermes realizes that he appears to be exhausted. He asks Adam what he's fighting for, since he can't sense his hatred for the gods, so Adam explains that he's fighting to protect his children, which makes the humans realize that he loves them. They come together to pray for his victory, and he notices that Zeus is sweating, so he asks him to surrender. But Zeus realizes that he needs to go all out to defeat Adam, so he crushes his body, and everyone freaks out as he transforms into his ultimate form. Adam senses his immense power, so he raises his guard for the first time, and Zeus charges in, as he releases all of his stored energy into his fist. Adam counters by copying his technique, but Zeus refuses to give up, and continues to attack Adam, who turns his head into a punching bag. Gaul thinks they're winning the fight, but Hilda panics as Adam's body overheats, since his nervous system is struggling to keep up with Zeus's movements. But the god Loki knows that Zeus has also reached his limit, so it's only a matter of time before either of them falls. Both fighters continue to push past their limit, and everyone stands as they witness the most beautiful fight in history, but they know that it's become a battle of endurance. So they cheer for their representatives, and beg them not to give up, since the fight is about to come to an end. But a drop of Zeus's blood gets into Adam's eye, and Zeus finally manages to land a hit on him. He starts beating him up, and Adam struggles to block his attacks, so everyone thinks it's all over for him. The humans beg the officials to stop the fight, since they already know who the winner is, and they cry as they watch their father get destroyed. But Adam suddenly hears a child crying, and he becomes even more determined to protect his children, so he grabs onto Zeus's head, as he decides to fight until the very end. He starts punching back as he takes Zeus's blows head on, and they appear to be evenly matched, so everyone wonders who will go down first. But Zeus suddenly falls to his knees, and returns to his original form, so everyone thinks he lost. The humans cheer for Adam, but they realize that he's already dead, and Zeus reveals that he died while they were trading blows, but his body still kept throwing punches. He praises Adam for pushing him past his limit, and admits that he would have lost if it were a contest of endurance. Heimdall announces Zeus as the winner of the battle, and the humans cry as Adam's soul crumbles, but they're determined to win Ragnarok to avenge him. After that, Gaul wonders why the Valkyrie that merged with Adam died, since the knuckle duster wasn't damaged. So the Valkyrie Hrist explains that if they perform Volundr, they will share the same fate as the person they merge with. Hilda eats to cope with the defeat, and she thinks they need to do whatever it takes to win the next match, but she learns that Poseidon, the god of the seas, is the next representative of the gods, and Gaul wonders why they're already sending their best fighters, since it's only the third round. Hilda wonders who she should pick as the next representative of humanity, but a mysterious man suddenly appears, and he volunteers to fight in the third round. She doesn't recognize him, but he opens his file, and she realizes that he's a famous swordsman named Kojiro Sasaki. Gaul wonders why he looks old, since the souls are supposed to be summoned in their prime, so he explains that he's currently at his strongest form, since he never stopped training after he passed away. Everyone gathers to watch the third round, and they immediately realize that there's water in the arena, so they know that Poseidon will represent the gods. He parts the water as he makes his entrance, and Heimdall introduces him as the most fearsome god, but he seems like he isn't excited for the battle. The other gods are afraid of him, since he's Zeus's older brother, and Kojiro rides a boat as he makes his entrance. Heimdall notes that he's the greatest swordsman of all time, even though he's a loser, since he gets stronger every time he tastes defeat. But the humans think he doesn't stand a chance, and they wonder why Hilda didn't choose Musashi Miyamoto instead, since he was the one who killed Kojiro. Gaul realizes that the humans are getting restless, but Hilda notes that she believes in him, since he never stopped training. He takes out his sword as he prepares for battle, and creates a high-pitched sound, which stuns the swordsman in the arena. Musashi's son thinks he's nothing special, but Musashi destroys the book he wrote, and notes that Kojiro has reached the highest level of swordsmanship. Heimdall announces the start of the battle, but Poseidon and Kojiro just stare at each other, and everyone wonders why they aren't moving. Hermes knows that Poseidon is just waiting for Kojiro to get in his range, and Kojiro imagines different scenarios in his head, but he ends up dying whenever he tries to attack. Gaul realizes that he's afraid to get in Poseidon's range, and Hilda reveals that the gods are afraid of him since he killed his older brother in Olympus. In a flashback, we see the Olympian god Adamas, who refuses to accept that his youngest brother Zeus is the greatest god, so he gathers a formidable army to overthrow him. He heads to Poseidon's palace and invites him to join the rebellion, but he calls Adamas pathetic, so he becomes angry and demands respect. But Poseidon tells him he doesn't deserve to be called a god because of his actions, so he becomes even angrier and rushes forward, but Poseidon stabs him before he can do anything. Poseidon knows that Hermes is watching him, and he tells him to rewrite history so that nobody would know about Adamas. Back in the present, Ares knows about this story, and he can't believe Adamas was defeated in a single blow, but Hermes explains that it isn't the reason why everyone's afraid of Poseidon. He notes that none of the gods objected when Poseidon decided to rewrite history, and we learn that they were all afraid to oppose him since he behaved as if he were superior to all of them. Kojiro realizes that he isn't even looking at him, and he doesn't know how to attack Poseidon, so he decides to just sit down and wait for him to make his move. In another flashback, we learn that Kojiro has never won a fight in his life, since he always challenged people who were stronger than him. He arrives late in a dojo, so the instructor becomes angry, and he gives him a sword, telling him to use it to defend himself. Kojiro manages to block the first attack, but the instructor disarms him, so he decides to surrender, and the instructor tells him he's pathetic, since a true warrior doesn't give up no matter what happens. The instructor's father tells him to stop wasting his time on Kojiro, since he has no talent with the sword, and the owner of the dojo named Sagan asks him why he gave up so quickly. So he explains that it's because he doesn't stand a chance, and everyone mocks him for having no courage. After that, Kojiro stops going to the dojo, and he observes the creatures in the woods, thinking he can learn the secrets of battle from them. He trains alone for 6 months, and he returns to the dojo, so the instructor asks him where he's been, but he's surprised to see that Kojiro seems to have gotten stronger. He challenges Kojiro to fight him, but he explains that he isn't interested, since he's already fought him hundreds of times in his head. So the instructor becomes angry and tries to attack him, but he suddenly imagines himself getting cut in half. He realizes that he's no match for Kojiro, so he immediately surrenders, and Kojiro challenges Sagan to fight him, so he takes a wooden sword and unleashes his power. After several years, Sagan visits Kojiro in a cabin, and we learn that he's already blind, but he can sense that Kojiro has already surpassed him, since he never stopped training alone. Sagan invites him to become an instructor at the dojo, but he notes that he'll be leaving soon, so that he can meet fighters who are better than him. He travels around the country as he challenges the best swordsmen he can find, and he loses to all of them, but he learns from all of his mistakes and becomes the greatest loser in history. We return to the present as Kojiro realizes that he needs to defeat Poseidon to survive the battle, so he decides to go all out. He lunges at Poseidon and misses his first attack, so Poseidon prepares to stab him, but Kojiro suddenly swings his sword upwards with lightning speed, and manages to cut Poseidon's hair, and Musashi remembers when Kojiro used the same technique against him. Poseidon walks towards Kojiro and starts thrusting his trident with incredible speed, but Kojiro still manages to dodge his attacks. Hilda knows that he doesn't have Adam's power, but he analyzed Poseidon even before their fight began and fought him in his mind countless times, so he knows how to deal with his attacks. But Poseidon suddenly whistles a tune before charging at Kojiro with incredible speed, and he manages to land a hit. The gods cheer for Poseidon, but they stop as they realize that he's getting annoyed, and Kojiro asks him why he doesn't want his friends to cheer for him. So he explains that gods don't need friends, since they're already perfect beings who can do everything alone, but Kojiro tells him that their existence is pathetic. So Poseidon becomes angry and unleashes a devastating barrage at Kojiro, who manages to block all of his attacks as he continues to evolve during the battle. He tries to cut Poseidon, but he suddenly disappears, and uses his trident to break Kojiro's sword in half, so everyone thinks it's over for him. He considers surrendering, but he knows that he can't do that, and he remembers his duel with Musashi. We learn that the story behind their duel wasn't accurate, since it was written 150 years after the fight, and the truth is that Kojiro thought about giving up, but he decided to fight until the end, since he knew that he would regret quitting while he was having fun. Musashi realizes that he's ready to die, so he gets fired up and prepares to fight him to the death. They continue to exchange blows, as they both enjoy their duel, and Kojiro manages to slash Musashi's face again. But he immediately recovers, and he delivers the finishing blow, as Kojiro realizes that it's the end for him. Back in the present, Kojiro takes both halves of his sword, and he notes that he'll never lose to Poseidon, since he doesn't know what it's like to be a loser. Both halves of his sword start glowing, as Hrist uses Valander again, and she transforms into two different swords. Gaul wonders how she was able to do that, so Hilda reminds her that Hrist has a dual personality, and she's the only Valkyrie with two powers dwelling within her. Gaul thinks Hilda predicted that Kojiro's sword would break, so she chose Hrist to merge with him, but she reveals that they just got lucky. Poseidon starts attacking Kojiro again, but he blocks the attacks and rushes forward, as he copies the moves of the swordsman who defeated him. The gods freak out as he starts cutting Poseidon, who tries to stab him again, but he blocks the attack using Musashi's technique. Everyone realizes that he was able to hurt Poseidon, so the humans cheer for him, but Poseidon suddenly whistles again, and uses his blood to pull his hair back. He decides to fight seriously, instantly hitting Kojiro in the shoulder, so he uses his ability to analyze it. But he still struggles to block it, since he can't keep up with Poseidon's speed, and Poseidon uses his ultimate move to attack him from all directions. As he blocks the attacks, he starts to wonder if he can win, but he remembers all the swordsmen who defeated him, and he hears them cheering for him, so he gets fired up and refuses to give up. He bleeds as Poseidon stabs him repeatedly, but he manages to parry one of the attacks, and notes that even a loser like him wants to win. He gains the ability to read all of creation, allowing him to use the elements in the cosmos to predict his opponent's moves, and he uses it to dodge Poseidon's attacks. The gods are stunned as they realize that he's reading all of Poseidon's moves, and he lunges towards him, so Poseidon aims for his heart. But Kojiro slices his arm off, and Poseidon tries to fight back, but the gods tremble as Kojiro cuts him to pieces. The humans celebrate their first victory against the gods, and Heimdall announces Kojiro as the winner, but the gods aren't happy that the most fearsome of them was defeated. Kojiro is about to collapse, but Hrist tells him to pull himself together, and he thanks her for helping him win the battle. They leave the arena together, and Gaul is happy that they finally won against the gods, but Hilda reminds her that it isn't over yet, since they still need to win 6 more times. After that, the gods gather in Zeus's room, where they discuss how mankind defeated Poseidon and came close to winning the first 2 rounds. So Zeus notes that they need to recognize that humans are strong and start taking Ragnarok seriously, since Hilda is willing to do whatever it takes to defeat them. As Hilda and Gaul consider the next match, they find out that the gods will be sending out Hercules. Even though they're on different sides, they see him like a brother, and Hilda wishes him luck. Hercules gets approached by Loki, who wonders if he can really destroy humanity, since he is half human himself. But Hercules tells him he will fight with everything he has for the gods, but he plans to petition against the destruction of humanity after he wins. The next round begins, and Hilda has chosen Jack the Ripper to fight for humanity. Hercules gets angry that he has to fight against a mass murderer, and even the crowd is conflicted about cheering for a serial killer. The arena is transformed into a section of London, and Jack shows off his divine weapon, a gigantic pair of scissors that can cut through anything. As Hercules prepares to fight, Jack runs away from him. He chases after him, and finds Jack having tea. He tells Jack to pick up his weapon and fight, but as Jack ignores him, Hercules approaches, but runs into some tripwires, and blades fall down on him, but he shrugs it off, saying human weapons aren't able to even scratch a god. Jack fires a grappling hook to get away, but Hercules jumps after him, swinging his club at Jack, who uses his scissors to block, but the scissors are shattered. Jack backs away from him, reaching for some knives, but Hercules reminds him they are pointless against him, but the knives end up actually stabbing into him. Hercules wonders how it's possible, and Jack reveals that he lied about his scissors, saying his divine weapon is actually his satchel, which he can use to create other divine weapons, as long as they can fit in the bag. Jack continues to throw knives, and Hercules bats them away, but there are some knives that land. Despite this, Hercules continues to push forward. As he swings his club, Jack assembles an umbrella, which he spins and diverts the attack. Jack taunts him, and Hercules activates one of his 12 labors as his tattoo grows and his club transforms, creating a lion-like shockwave that hits Jack and blows him into a building. Jack gets back up, snapping his dislocated shoulder back into place. The tattoos on Hercules spread all over his body, and Loki asks Ares about them. So Ares explains that when Hercules completed the 12 labors and mastered the 12 divine arts, those powers came with a price, and each time he uses them, his tattoos spread, and every time they do, he feels unbearable pain that would be enough to knock out a normal god. And if the tattoos cover his whole body, he will die. But Ares has faith in him, saying his will is so strong that even the gods couldn't break it. We see that thousands of years ago, there was a boy named Castor getting bullied. His friend Alcides tries to stand up for him, but also gets beaten up. Castor wonders why he tried to fight when he is so weak, but Alcides states that it was the right thing to do. Despite being a scrawny kid, he had the biggest heart and sense of justice. He trains as hard as he can, but the bullies mock him, saying that he should try drinking the blood of Zeus from the temple, because the legends say that if a true hero drinks it, they will become immortal, but if they are not a true hero, they will instantly perish. Castor tells Alcides to not believe them since it's just a legend, and Alcides says he is aware, even though he wants to get strong, there is no point if he dies trying. He keeps on training, and over time, there came a point where there was no longer anyone who would make fun of him. During a council of the gods, they find that humans have become too wicked, so Ares is sent to wipe them all out. The humans are scared, but Alcides stands up to him. Ares easily kicks him away, but he stands up and faces him again. He decides to risk it all, drinking the blood of Zeus, but he has a violent reaction to it and falls to the ground. As Ares continues forward, Alcides gets back up, having obtained a stronger body. The soldiers all charge at him, but Alcides defeats them all and goes toe-to-toe fighting with Ares. Neither of them back down, but Zeus appears and stops the fight. He tells Alcides that he will become a god, since he will just cause trouble if he is left on Earth. Alcides agrees on the condition that they swear they will never again cause harm to mankind, and for the next 4,000 years, the gods didn't interfere with Earth's affairs. While Alcides took his place among the gods as a child of Zeus, and was named after his wife Hera, and became known as Hercules. Jack and Hercules continue their fight as Jack throws his blades and knives. He jumps around all over the place, but as Hercules approaches, Jack starts hopping in the air, and it turns out he set up wires while he was jumping around. Hercules wonders how many more tricks he has, and Jack throws knives in the air, and using the wires, he flings them with increased speed. The knives bounce all around, and Hercules struggles to defend himself. Hercules uses the sixth labor, transforming his club into a bird, creating a powerful wind that blows the knives back at Jack. Jack gets hit, and his monocle is destroyed, but this reveals Jack's special eye. He marvels at Hercules' unwavering will, seeing him with a brilliant light, and he wonders how his color will change when he meets his death. We see Jack as a boy, getting caught stealing food from the trash. He gets beaten by the owner, and Jack sees the man's aura as red, indicating malice and rage. But as he begs for food, the man's aura turns blue, which Jack recognizes as a color of superiority. Jack gets to leave with some food, and he heads home thinking his mother will be happy. He gets to the brothel where they live, and his mother sees that he's injured and quickly treats him, and he sees her as the most beautiful person, seeing a brilliant golden aura. One day as Jack reads, one of the women at the brothel wonders why his mother decided to keep him since she aborted her previous 5 pregnancies. She pities him for having to grow up in such a situation, but Jack says he is happy, taking comfort in his mother's love. But one day, as he is returning home with some food, he returns to find his mother crying over a newspaper article. She learned the man she was in love with had gotten married. He had promised to come back for her 13 years ago, so she's devastated. When Jack tries to comfort his mother, saying they still have each other, she yells at him, saying he is worthless now and wishing she had aborted him. He realizes he was just a tool to connect her to the one she loved, and Jack sees his mother's color turning red. He starts choking her, finding the color to be disgusting, and she turns purple. Realizing it as the color of fear, he finds it to be beautiful. His mother gets free, but Jack stabs her in the neck, telling her she's the most beautiful she has ever been. Jack tells Hercules that when people die, it's a beautiful sight when they all turn to fear. But Hercules says that when he dies, there won't be a hint of fear in him, because the only thing he fears is the lack of justice. The two continue their fight, and Jack eventually gets cornered, with his back against Big Ben. Jack uses his grappling gun to get away, but Hercules knocks down the tower. Jack manages to hold on the clock arms, and Hercules prepares to use his seventh labor. The clock face detaches, and Jack throws it at Hercules. Hercules reminds him that he can't be hurt by mortal weapons, but as he tries to block it, his arm is sliced off, and Jack reveals that he lied about his satchel being his divine weapon, saying it was just a bluff to get Hercules to lower his guard, and reveals that his real divine weapon are his gloves. Using a pebble, he shows how anything he touches becomes a divine weapon, and Ares is shocked, realizing that he's been touching everything, so the whole city has become a weapon. Ares starts freaking out, but he gets punched by Zeus, who reminds him of the kind of man that Hercules is. Ares pulls himself together and agrees that his best friend Hercules would never lose. Despite being cornered, Hercules shows no sign of fear. He notes that as both a human and a god, he can see the flaws of humanity, yet he still loves them. Jack sees the color of love from him, a color he never thought he would see again, and Hercules declares that he will save him as well. Hercules throws his club into the sky and activates his 12th labor, Cerberus. The hounds descend onto him, and he is transformed with a demonic visage. Zeus states it's now a race against time. The labor is devastatingly powerful, but it comes with a price. The labor will only end when it either devours his opponent or completely consumes him. The fight between the two becomes more intense, and Hercules easily destroys anything that Jack throws at him. Despite being able to dodge a lot of the attacks, Jack shields himself with a manhole, but Hercules punches right through it and lands a hit. Jack tries to escape with his grappling hook, but Hercules jumps after him, punching him down, and Jack gets impaled on a metal fence. He cuts himself free, and Hercules tells him there's nowhere left to run, but Jack reminds him that all of London is his weapon. He cuts the building behind him, and as it falls, he bounces off of Hercules to get away, and Hercules is crushed by the building. The fight appears to be over, but Ares yells for Hercules to stand, and in that moment, Hercules emerges from the rubble, getting up once again. He tells Jack that no matter what he tries, his righteous heart won't be shaken. Jack thanks him, realizing that his mother's color was fake. He never knew that true love was so beautiful, but he still wants to turn him to fear. Jack takes a piece of wood and part of a door, turning them into divine weapons, and engages Hercules in close combat for the first time. Hercules smashes through his shield, and Jack is blown away. So he goes back to avoiding the attacks, and Ares worries he's just buying time while Hercules' tattoos cover him. But Loki doesn't agree, pointing out all the blood Jack is losing, saying he also doesn't have much time. Jack continues dodging Hercules' attacks, waiting for a perfect timing. He pulls out the iron rod from the fence, but only manages to scratch him, and Hercules knocks him down. The gods start celebrating, but Jack sings the London Bridge is falling down, and he slowly gets back up. He stumbles over to Hercules, trying to stab him once again, but Hercules punches him, and as he prepares for a finishing blow, Jack suddenly stabs him with his hands. Hercules realizes that he soaked his gloves with his blood, and turned his blood into a divine weapon. Realizing that he lost, he asks Jack about his color, so he tells him that it remained unchanged. Hercules is glad, hugging Jack and reminding him that he will always love mankind. His soul proceeds to shatter, and the gods are left speechless. As he fades, he hopes Hilda is watching, saying that he leaves the rest to her to save the humans. Gaul cries for Hercules, and asks Hilda if she's happy that Jack killed him, but she notes that she's just doing what needs to be done in order to save humanity. Hilda goes into a room where she pays respect to the fallen heroes, and she cries as she adds a cup for Hercules, saying that she will join him once everything is over. As Ares mourns Hercules' death, Zeus is angered that they are now tied with humanity 2-2. He lets out his frustration, destroying their viewing area, and refuses to let humanity take the lead. We meet the god Buddha, as he sees Loki waiting for him. Buddha wonders if he is trying to pick a fight, but Loki just asks him about the Volundr. He thinks it's strange that the Valkyrie have such a powerful technique. He accuses Buddha of using his powers to aid the humans, asking him if he's a traitor. Things are looking tense, and at that moment, the 7 gods of fortune arrive, and they also want to deliver judgment on Buddha. One of them, named Ebisu, tries to intimidate him, but Buddha isn't bothered. Ebisu tries to hit him, but he launches his lollipop to stop Ebisu's attack. The gods of fortune prepare for battle, with Loki joining their side. Buddha tells them to bring it on, unleashing his power. At that moment, Kojiro arrives, along with 2 other heroes of humanity. They take Buddha's side, preparing to fight the gods, but Zeus suddenly smashes the ground, breaking things up. Ebisu still wants to fight, but Odin unleashes a menacing aura, intimidating everyone, and they all decide to walk away. Zeus warns Buddha not to cause trouble, but Buddha laughs, saying he doesn't take orders from anyone. Meanwhile, Gaul apologizes to Hilda for her outburst, but Hilda tells her there's no need, saying they should work together for mankind. They visit the quarters of their next hero, where they see a massive man sleeping. Hilda wakes him up, telling him it's his turn to fight. The man gets up, and we meet Raiden Tamimin, mankind's greatest sumo wrestler. Raiden wonders if he'll be merging with Hilda, but she says there is someone more suitable for him. A giant woman named Thrud enters the room, introducing herself as his partner. Raiden is shocked seeing her, and Thrud wonders if he's disappointed seeing her appearance, but Raiden is actually pleased, saying she is perfect, which makes her heart melt, as she turns into his divine weapon. We see the next fight is set in a sumo-themed arena, and Raiden is introduced as an undefeated sumo champion. His opponent arrives on an elephant, and we meet Shiva, the god of destruction. The fight begins, with Raiden instantly charging at Shiva, and drop-kicking him in his face. Shiva gets pushed back, but he quickly recovers. Raiden continues to attack, landing a punch, and he knocks Shiva to his knees. He wants to end things quickly, attacking with a knee strike, but Shiva blocks it, glad they are having a real fight. Raiden is pushed away, and Shiva grabs onto him, smashing his chest, and launching him into the air. Raiden lands on his feet, and Shiva is happy to see he is a worthy opponent. In a flashback, we see a 3-year-old Raiden, as his parents wonder what's wrong with him, because he can't even stand. One day, while his parents are preparing supper, they are surprised to see him standing, but his legs are shaking. His parents are overjoyed to see this, but as he takes a step, Raiden suddenly feels pain, and his parents watch in horror as his body falls apart. All the bones in his body are broken, but we learn it's because his muscles were just too powerful for his bones. Despite this, Raiden tried his best to walk, and he eventually managed to do it, as his body produced even more muscles to restrain his power, creating a shell, which was known as the 100 Seals. Back in the present, Raiden slaps himself, and unlocks his 100 Seals. His muscles start to go berserk, and Shiva wonders if he's going to destroy himself. But he calls on Thrud to help him out, and he is able to put his muscles under control. We learn that the lines on his body are actually his Volender, and it gives him total control over his muscles. Gaul becomes shocked realizing Raiden became the strongest while his power was restricted by his 100 Seals. Raiden's body stabilizes, and he charges at Shiva, punching with all of his might. Shiva is blown away, and he feels the difference in Raiden's power. Everyone cheers for Raiden, and Shiva seems to be barely standing. Raiden tries to finish him off with a headbutt, but Raiden is the one who ends up taking damage. Shiva counterattacks, punching him away, as he reveals his head is as hard as stone. Shiva starts attacking him with a flurry of attacks, and all Raiden can do is block. Raiden takes some damage, but he grabs onto Shiva's arm, and he uses his brute strength to crush it instantly. Shiva kicks him away, and everyone sees his broken arm. The gods tremble, but the Indian gods know Shiva better, and they cheer him on. Shiva hears them cheering for him, and we learn he has never let his friends down. Shiva realizes he is fighting for their sake as well, so he gets fired up, charging at Raiden, and his punch seems to have gotten stronger. We learn that his fists have the power of over 1,000 Indian gods behind them, and Raiden tries to fight back, but Shiva hits him with a devastating blow, making him cough blood, as Shiva attacks with his head. Raiden doesn't back down, countering with his own headbutt, and the two keep smashing their heads together. In a flashback, we learn that the Indian gods were fighting each other to determine who would rule over them. During that time, Shiva and his friend Rudra were just unknown gods, living carefree lives. But their territory is attacked by another group of gods. They go out to confront them, but they get laughed at as the gods think they are nobodies. However, they end up beating those gods, and after the fight, Rudra tells Shiva about his dream to stand at the pinnacle of India, wanting to see things no one else has ever seen. He tells Shiva to join him, saying they can go anywhere if they work together, and Shiva decides to go with him, thinking it will be fun. Together, they beat the other gods, and with every god they defeated, they would gain their strength, but it would also increase their responsibility. They eventually go up against a god named Indra, who is said to be 10 times stronger than the other gods. Rudra fights him alone, and he eventually comes out on top. They dance together to celebrate their victory, and they later reach the top, having defeated all of the other gods. But at the pinnacle, Rudra tells him they need to fight, because only one god can stand at the top. Shiva doesn't want to do it, but Rudra insists, so they end up fighting. They trade blows, in what became known as the most ferocious fight in the history of India, and Shiva eventually gains the advantage. Rudra refuses to give up, reminding Shiva about his dream, so Shiva decides to throw the fight, but just as he is about to admit defeat, Rudra beats him to it, knowing that he lost. But he tells Shiva not to go easy on an opponent who's going all out, and Shiva gains the name of Rudra, making him the chief of all the Indian gods. Back in the present, Shiva starts dancing to the rhythm of the cosmos, and the other gods recognize it as the war dance which he used to unite the Indian gods. Shiva moves erratically, dodging Raiden's punch. Raiden strengthens his legs, trying to attack again, but Shiva easily dodges and kicks him away. Shiva proceeds to give him a beating, and Raiden appears to be helpless against the assault. But he pumps up his forearms, creating a massive meat shield to block all of Shiva's attacks. Shiva's dance sets his body on fire, and he continues to pound Raiden with his burning fists. Shiva manages to break through his shield, as he strikes with his leg, burning Raiden's body. Everyone thinks mankind is about to lose, but Raiden suddenly smiles, as he realizes he can fight his opponent with his full strength. In a flashback, we see a 5-year-old Raiden as he has a sumo match with his senior. He easily defeats the other boy, and Raiden celebrates his victory, but his senior is injured, and everyone starts seeing him as a monster. He asks his mother why he isn't like the other kids, but his mother tells him his strength is a gift from the gods, so he must use it to help the weak. After that, Raiden grew up as a good man, and he is supposed to stay in his village, but one day, a volcano erupted, destroying all of the crops, causing a famine. Raiden knows the people are suffering, so at the age of 17, he leaves the village and goes to Edo, planning to become a sumo wrestler to earn money for his village. He enters a dojo, where the trainer tells him to have a match, but he refuses, not wanting to hurt the other wrestlers. But a wrestler named Ozaki challenges him, telling him to go home if he loses, so he accepts the fight. Raiden immediately charges at his opponent, but Ozaki is able to stop him, and he gets thrown to the side. Raiden is shocked by this, but he keeps charging at Ozaki, who keeps beating him up. As Raiden lies on the ground, Ozaki asks him what he thinks about sumo, and Raiden discovers his love for it. After that, Raiden devotes himself to learning sumo, and one day, he has his first match, where he easily throws his opponent out of the ring. He goes on to overpower other wrestlers with a single move, turning him into a living legend. He feeds the people in his hometown, and everyone starts looking up to him, but during one of his matches, he realizes that his opponent is afraid of him. He's reminded of the time he hurt his senior, so he ends up throwing the match. Ozaki asks him why he did this, but he sees Raiden crying, as he realizes he is using his powers to bully the weak. To prevent himself from injuring his opponents, he stops using his 4 strongest sumo moves, but despite this, he goes on to win more than 95% of his matches, and he only lost fights when he threw against much weaker opponents. Back in the present, Raiden assumes an unusual stance, stomping his foot, as he prepares to use his palm thrust. He flexes his leg muscles, as he jumps toward Shiva, transferring all of his strength to his hand, as he unleashes his technique. Shiva tries to block it, but he gets blown away, and even loses 2 of his arms. Everyone thinks humanity has won, but Shiva gets back up. Raiden suddenly takes damage, and Gaul wonders what's going on. Hilda explains that Raiden's technique puts strain on his body, and his body is being ripped apart, but his Volundr is holding him together. Thrud is worried about him, but Raiden tells her to move his muscles even faster. He knows it won't be good for his body, but he wants to put his full might into sumo, so Thrud lends him her powers, as she decides to support him. Shiva feels a gust of wind, as he sees Rudra watching his fight. He is happy to see him in the arena, along with the other Indian gods who believe in him, so he becomes determined not to lose. Shiva stabs himself in the chest, grabbing his heart and forcing it to beat faster, causing fire to surround his body as he transforms into his ultimate form. The two charge at each other, exchanging blows, as Shiva uses his burning legs to attack Raiden, burning his muscles. Hilda knows Raiden is at a disadvantage, because he will lose muscle as the fight drags on, but Hermes notes that Shiva's technique is just as dangerous, and it could end up burning his body away. Shiva attacks Raiden from behind, and Raiden tries to grab onto him, enduring the flames, but Shiva counters, kicking him in the head. The other sumo wrestlers start to lose hope, but Ozaki points out Raiden is still on his feet, fighting for all of sumo, so they cheer him on, and it gives him more power, as he charges at Shiva with his head, knocking him down. Shiva gets back up, but his body starts falling to pieces, so the Indian gods realize he's close to his limit. But they know that Raiden is in a similar situation, so the fight has become a contest of endurance. The two clash, and the crowd goes wild as they exchange blows. With both fighters fighting for something bigger than themselves, they are putting everything on the line for this fight, but they both approach their limit. Raiden prepares to use his palm thrust again, and Shiva tells him to bring it on. They charge at each other with their ultimate skills, but Shiva's attack overpowers Raiden, ripping his arm apart. He thanks Shiva for allowing him to use all of his might, as he tells Thrud to release his Volundr, but she chooses to stay with him, since she has fallen for him. Raiden admits he had a great time, and Shiva finishes him off. He thanks Raiden for giving him the greatest fight ever, and as he walks away, Raiden's soul proceeds to shatter. As Shiva leaves the arena, he encounters Rudra, who catches him as he falls. Zeus approaches him, saying he's in bad shape, as Shiva admits he almost lost, saying humans are awesome, and Zeus laughs as he agrees with him. Meanwhile, Gaul mourns the death of Thrud, asking Hilda why they are going so far to save mankind. Hilda adds Raiden's cup to the altar of fallen heroes, saying they are now 2 to 3 against the gods. She gets emotional, but she's still determined to save mankind. We see Zeus approaching a tree, where he finds Buddha eating chocolates. He wants to have one, but Buddha won't let him have any, and he eats all of the chocolates at once. Zeus asks him to fight in the next match, saying he doesn't like losing, threatening Buddha with his aura. But Buddha quickly calls him the boss, and he tells him to enjoy the show. We see Buddha as he enters the arena. He grabs onto Heimel's horn, but he announces that he'll be fighting on the side of the humans. The gods think he has gone mad, but Buddha claims that if the gods aren't willing to save mankind, he will do it himself. Gaul is confused, asking Hilda why Buddha is fighting on their side, wondering if this is part of her plan, but Hilda notes that Buddha doesn't take orders from anyone. We see that just before the round, Buddha approached her, after she just mourned for Raiden. Buddha tells her that he wants to fight for humanity, but she isn't surprised. He asks her if things are going according to her plan, because she asked him about his powers before Ragnarok began, so he thinks she's been scheming to get him to fight the gods. Hilda denies this, as she points out that everyone knows he hates the gods. He laughs hearing this, but he warns her that he doesn't take kindly to being manipulated, before walking away. We return to the arena, where Heimel tells him that he can't switch sides, but Zeus says he doesn't mind, revealing that Buddha isn't breaking any of the rules. Odin asks Buddha if he is prepared to be the enemy of all gods, but he doesn't care, saying he's the only thing that matters, making all the other gods mad. Buddha asks Zeus who he's going to fight, and light comes out of the sky, as a ship descends on the arena, and the 7 gods of fortune make their entrance. Heimdall tells them that only one of them can fight, but their leader reveals that they are actually one being, as he removes his armor. His companions enter his body, and a bright light surrounds him, creating a sphere, which shatters as a god named Zero appears. Zero wants to slaughter Buddha, as he warms up his body, but Buddha doesn't seem to care. His back bulges, and he pulls out his weapon as he prepares to fight. Gaul thinks it's not fair for 7 gods to combine into one, but Hilda calls it his true form, revealing that he used to be a good god that wanted to spread fortune, but he ended up being changed by sorrow. In a flashback, we see Zero going to the city, where he sees the people suffering. It makes him cry, and he wonders what he can do to make them happy. He thinks about removing the source of their misfortune to make them happy, so he goes to a boy, touching him with his hand, and absorbing his misfortune. The boy instantly feels better, and the people start worshipping Zero. He continues to absorb the misfortune of other people, but after several years, he has absorbed too much, and it takes a toll on his body. He returns to the city, wanting to see how the people are doing, but he discovers the true nature of humanity, as the people fall into depravity without misfortune. A man bumps into him, causing him to fall to the ground, and Zero recognizes the man as the boy he helped years ago. He asks the man how he's doing, but the man doesn't even remember him, telling him to get lost. Zero can't believe that any of this is real, thinking about everything he's done for them, and wondering why the people are still unhappy. At that moment, Buddha arrives with his disciples. Zero notes that Buddha's disciples look shabby and poor, but he wonders why they looked so happy, unlike the people in the city. Zero calls out to Buddha, asking him why his followers look so fortunate, because when he absorbed the misfortune of humans, he only made them worse. Buddha tells him that fortune can't be given, and that it must be obtained, saying there is shadow where there is light, and tells Zero to join him to achieve enlightenment. Zero cries as he runs away, feeling jealous, because despite being a human, Buddha was able to make people more fortunate, knowing that it's supposed to be his job. As he mourns by a river, a dark energy suddenly surrounds him, and his love transforms into hate, turning him into the Zero that he is now. 3 people see him in the woods, and they immediately run away, as he chases after them. He prepares to kill the woman, but she stops, shielding her baby. It causes him to hesitate, and he resists the urge to kill, dividing himself into the 7 gods of fortune. Back in the present, Zero thinks it's his time to punish Buddha, but Buddha suddenly kicks him, knocking him to his knees, as Buddha reminds him that the fight has already begun. Zero gets back up, attacking with his axe, but Buddha easily evades thanks to his special eyes. Zero becomes angry, swinging his axe wildly, but Buddha dodges every attack. Zero becomes frustrated, and his axe seems to grow in size. Zeus reveals that Zero's axe absorbs misfortune, and it gets stronger the more it absorbs. Hilda adds that Zero's inability to hit Buddha counts as misfortune to him, so he will get stronger as the fight drags on. Gaul is impressed by Buddha's ability to dodge, moving before Zero even attacks, and we learn that his eyes give him the power of precognition. Zero continues to miss, asking Buddha if he's mocking him, and Buddha suddenly counterattacks. Buddha taunts him, making him even angrier, and Buddha proceeds to give him a beating. The battle appears one-sided, but Zero suddenly remembers his past misfortunes, and he unleashes a powerful aura. The axe absorbs his misfortunes, and it becomes ridiculously massive. Zero swings his axe at Buddha, but Buddha stands his ground, activating his staff. The axe obliterates everything in the area, but Buddha's staff transformed into a shield, protecting him from the attack. Hilda reveals that Buddha's staff is a divine treasure, which contains the power of the 6 realm guardians in Buddhism, and it changes its form depending on Buddha's emotions. Buddha pushes the axe back, as Zero transforms it into a serrated sword. Buddha's weapon takes the form of a club, and it signals him to charge in, so he dashes at Zero, dodging his attack as he lands a hit. In a flashback, we learn that Buddha was born as a prince of a royal family in Nepal, and he had everything a man could ever wish for. One evening, his father the king tells him about his destiny to become the king of the world. He helps feed the people in his kingdom, telling them it's the duty of royalty to bring fortune to the people. One day, he meets up with his distant relative, King Jataka, and they talk about Buddha's destiny to become the king. Buddha thinks Jataka is happy because the kingdom is prosperous, but Jataka reveals that he isn't fortunate because he's suffering from a life-threatening disease, and his entire life, he has done nothing but serve the people, so he has no idea what the outside world is like. Jataka eventually passes away, and everyone mourns his death, thinking he lived a happy life, but Buddha knows this wasn't the case, and at that moment, Buddha thinks about his life, and how his fortune was given to him. He gets off his horse, and starts laughing, saying he has been enlightened. He goes to Jataka's funeral, where he throws flowers everywhere, and he takes Jataka's casket. Everyone condemns his behavior, but he doesn't care what they think, because Jataka doesn't need their prayers, saying true fortune is found within. He takes Jataka's remains to the river, where he leaves his casket floating, and he leaves everything behind to go on a journey into the wilderness. He finds a group of men trying to achieve enlightenment by starving themselves, and one of them has collapsed from hunger. Their leader claims that it's the only way to purify the mind, but Buddha gives the man some food, telling him to eat. The leader condemns his actions, but Buddha doesn't care, saying he wants to feed the man. The group starts following Buddha instead, and he teaches them to lie down and chill, instead of starving themselves. One evening, a girl is about to be sacrificed to the gods, but Buddha saves her. The worshippers worry about the wrath of God, but Buddha tells them he would gladly fight the gods. Hilda notes that Buddha despises anyone who tries to force destiny onto others or deprive them of inner happiness, so it's the reason that he's fighting the gods. Zero twists his weapon, transforming it into two swords, while Buddha turns his divine treasure into a poleaxe. They proceed to exchange blows, but Buddha has the advantage with his precognition. Zero ends up getting slashed, but this just makes him angrier, as his weapon transforms once again. His blades approach Buddha, but Buddha's weapon takes the form of a knife, and he is able to destroy the blades. He manages to close the distance, and their weapons clash, as the crowd starts cheering for Buddha. Zero becomes upset that nobody is paying attention to him, just like in his past, and he suddenly extends his weapon, almost hitting Buddha. Buddha tells him he needs to love himself, but Zero calls it nonsense, trying to attack him. Buddha claims he has taken a liking to him, and Zero thinks he's lying, but as he looks at Buddha, he sees the sincere look on his face. It makes him realize that he just wanted to be like Buddha, who was loved by everyone, and his weapon slowly loses power. Buddha throws his weapon away, saying he wants to finish things with his hands. They start fighting each other, as Zero realizes that Buddha is the one who understands him the most, finally feeling happy, as Buddha knocks him down with a punch. The crowd cheers for Buddha, and Zero's misfortune leaves his body, allowing him to return to his true form, wanting to make people happy again. But his horns suddenly return to his head, causing him pain, and two dragons come out of his body. They encircle him, forming a sphere, and a massive demon emerges from it. Buddha jumps away, unable to read its movements, and he wonders what's going on. The demon explains that Zero is no more, and he introduces himself as Papayas, the Demon King. Buddha wonders what he wants, and Papayas isn't sure, but says he wants to test out his power. Ares asks Hermes about Papayas, but even he doesn't know anything. Hades suddenly joins them, saying Papayas isn't a god, as Ares quickly gives up his chair for him. Hades reveals that Papayas is a legendary berserker from the underworld, which is where the damned run rampant. He tells them that despite being the king of the underworld, he has never seen Papayas before, and he wonders why a god would turn into him. Buddha starts fighting with Papayas, but it seems he can no longer predict his movements. Hilda notes that Buddha's eyes allow him to see the flickers of the soul, which moves before the body, but Papayas' soul is total darkness, so he can't see anything. Papayas decides to fight with his full power, flexing his arm as he turns his weapon into a drill. He charges at Buddha, who tries to defend with his shield, but the drill penetrates right through, taking out Buddha's eye. Papayas is impressed he was able to dodge the attack, because he was aiming for the head. He transforms his arm into an axe, and he continues his assault. They continue to exchange blows, and Buddha ends up taking another hit. Ares wonders how Papayas is so strong, and Hades states that no ordinary god can hold a candle to him. He reveals that Papayas once destroyed half of the underworld, and the destruction only stopped because he suddenly vanished. But it was something that occurred centuries before Hades became the king, and he never believed the story. He thinks Papayas is there because someone must have obtained a fragment of him and created something like a seed, which was then planted on Zero. Ares wonders who would do such a thing, and Hades thinks there's only one god who would enjoy such a thing. Hermes knows he's talking about Beelzebub, who would have done it just to see what would happen, saying anyone could have been the vessel. Buddha tries to counterattack, but he gets stabbed in the foot. He falls back, but his injuries are starting to take a toll on him. He calls on Zero, thinking he's still somewhere inside, but Papayas laughs, saying he has already consumed Zero and turned him into nourishment. Buddha declares he will kill Papayas, as he feels hatred for the first time in centuries, causing his weapon to transform into a scythe. Papayas is unfazed, eager to take him on, and Buddha strikes first, but Papayas manages to block his attack. Buddha pushes him back, creating an opening, and his scythe expels fire to boost his speed as he tries to finish him off. But Papayas ends up blocking it with his arm, and Buddha is the one who gets stabbed. Papayas wonders if he has any last words, but Buddha gets closer, saying he'll be the one to save mankind. Papayas finds him dangerous, kicking him away, and Buddha is badly injured, but he refuses to give up, calling Papayas a chicken. Papayas tells him to know his place, saying he has become a supreme being, because unlike before, when his body couldn't handle his strength, he now has a stronger vessel, so he's confident in his power. but Buddha calls him weak, saying that he is even weaker than Zero. Papyrus charges at him, telling him to prove it as he launches an assault on Buddha. Ares wonders if this is the end for him, but Hades tells him to look at Buddha's eyes, because he still hasn't given up, and Zeus knows he's just waiting for a chance to turn the tables. Buddha gets knocked back, but he stays on his feet, and Papyrus wonders how he's still standing. Buddha tells him to bring it on, which scares Papyrus as his hands start shaking. He refuses to accept this, ripping off his arm to conquer his fear, and he turns it into a sword. Buddha charges with his scythe, but Papyrus counters with his own skill, breaking the scythe. The weapon returns to its original form, and Papyrus rushes at him, ultimately destroying Buddha's staff. It looks like the end for Buddha, and Papyrus goes in for the kill, but at that moment, he gets a vision where he sees light behind him, and as he reaches out to it, there's a hand that grabs onto him. Buddha regains consciousness, and he suddenly starts laughing. Papyrus thinks he has lost his mind, but as Buddha gets back up, he says he has overcome his immaturity. His hairband breaks, causing him to take on a new appearance, and he takes Zero's weapon, telling Zero they will fight together, as he activates the Volundar technique. Hilda cries as she realizes the weapon is absorbing Buddha's love instead of misfortune, turning it into a new divine treasure. The weapon takes the form of a strange sword, and it has the power of the 7 gods of fortune. Buddha goes toe-to-toe with Papyrus, and humanity cheers for him with everything they have. Their desires flow into him, giving him strength, as Papyrus wonders how he can keep fighting despite his condition. Buddha parries his attack, and they both land a hit on each other, but Kojiro thinks the odds are against Buddha, since he's already taken too much damage. Papyrus attacks with his skill, damaging Buddha as he blocks it, but Buddha manages to parry, creating an opening, and he lands a counterattack. Papyrus can't believe his strongest attack was stopped, but we see the gods mentioning that Buddha won't be able to block the attack again, but Hades says he just needs to dodge. We see Papyrus launching a barrage of attacks, but it seems Buddha can now dodge. Because of Papyrus's fear, Buddha can now see the flickers of his soul, allowing him to dodge the attacks. Papyrus becomes frustrated, unable to land a hit, so he uses his ultimate skill, slicing Buddha in half. Everyone is shocked seeing this, and Papyrus thinks he has finally won, but Buddha's body disappears, and he reappears behind him. He lands a decisive blow, slicing Papyrus into pieces, as humanity celebrates the victory. Papyrus refuses to accept defeat, trying to attack once more, but before he can hit him, his soul shatters. Buddha sees Zero's soul smiling at him as he joins the 7 gods of fortune, ascending to the sky, and Buddha says farewell to him. Buddha is announced as the winner of the match, and humanity cheers for him as he leaves the arena. Hilda and Gaul rush to him, celebrating his victory, but he suddenly collapses from his injuries. He receives medical attention, and he reminds Hilda not to be so serious all the time. Hilda sees an imposter approaching, but she knows that it's a human named Nostradamus, who removes his disguise and tells her he wants to fight in the next round. But she notes that it isn't his turn yet, and threatens to send him back to the underworld if he keeps causing trouble. She knows that he's the only human who was sent to the underworld, because he destroyed the Bifrost, which connects it to the realm of the gods Valhalla. We learn that the Bifrost acts as the gateway to prevent the 2 realms from invading each other, since both sides were always at war, and only the chief gods are allowed to pass through it. Nostradamus explains that he couldn't completely get rid of it, since the gods stopped him halfway, and he reveals that he wanted to see what would happen if it were destroyed. But Hilda just tells him to wait in his room until she calls him, and notes that she'll save him for the right moment, since he's humanity's wild card. The gods realize that the scores are tied, and as they think about who should participate in the next match, Hermes looks at Ares, so he thinks they want him to fight. He wants to bring victory to the Olympians, so he decides to represent the gods, but Hades suddenly volunteers, since he wants to avenge his brother Poseidon. Hilda prepares to summon the next representative of humanity, but she sees Nostradamus, who predicts that the gods will win the next match. Gaul freaks out because of his prediction, but he reveals that he was just joking, and laughs at how gullible she is. Hilda is shocked when she learns about the next representative of the gods, and Gaul panics as she realizes that it's Hades, since she thinks he's unbeatable. But Hilda notes that she knows a human who can defeat him, and she summons the first king of humanity named Qin Shi Huang. We see Ares telling Hermes that their victory is guaranteed, since Hades is a formidable fighter, but Qin suddenly sits with them. They think he must be lost, so Ares tells him he isn't allowed to sit with the gods, and prepares to take him away, but Qin easily overpowers him and knocks him down. Hermes finds him interesting, but Qin tells him to know his place, and notes that any seat he takes becomes his throne. He tells Hermes he's thirsty, so Hermes gives him honey water, and he mentions that it's delicious. Gaul suddenly barges into the room, and she tells Qin she was looking for him, while Hilda reminds him not to leave the waiting room when he's alone. He notes that wherever he walks becomes the right path, but Gaul thinks he's just bad with directions, and Hilda tells him they need to go. But he refuses to leave since he likes it there, so she notes that he can't stay, since the next match is about to begin, and she reminds him that he needs to fight. So Ares and Hermes realize that he's humanity's next representative, and she offers to take him to the entrance, but he tells her he'll make his own path. Heimdall announces that the next round is about to begin, and he introduces the next representative of humanity, but nobody comes out of the entrance. A man hits a gong, and the past emperors of China gather to make a path for Qin, who starts walking to the arena. Heimdall introduces him as the man who defeated the 6 kings of the warring states to unite all of China, and notes that he's the first human in history to approach the heavenly emperor status. He jumps into the arena, where the Valkyrie Elvire scolds him since he didn't practice Volundr with her, and she thinks they can't unite their hearts since they don't have chemistry. But he carries her and tells her to relax, and she immediately falls in love with him. They activate Volundr, and she transforms into his divine armor, which improves his martial art abilities. We see Hades making his way to the arena when he meets Poseidon's servant Proteus, who gives him his master's trident. He tells Hades to use it to avenge Poseidon, so he merges it with his bident, causing it to transform. Heimdall introduces Hades as the representative of the gods, and he casually walks to the arena, but everyone trembles as they see him, since they know that he's the king of the underworld. The match begins, and Hades immediately starts thrusting like Poseidon, but Qin manages to avoid his attacks. Hades lunges at him as he uses his special move, so Qin jumps away, but the attack travels through the ground, and he ends up getting hit. Hades rushes forward to finish him off, but Qin deflects his attack, and uses his ability to send him flying. In a flashback, we learn that the rulers of ancient China only became kings because they worshipped a demon god named Qiyu. But Qin unified China without relying on him, and we learn that he climbed Qiyu's mountain after he defeated the 6 kings to perform a ceremony seeking the mandate of heaven. He approaches Qiyu, who tells him to sacrifice 10,000 men if he wants to become emperor of China, but he just gives him a clay figure, and Qiyu tells him it tastes terrible. Qin tells him he'll never kneel before him, and prepares to take him on, so Qiyu becomes angry and unleashes his power. After 6 days of fighting, Qin manages to defeat Qiyu, and becomes the first emperor of China. We return to the present, as Hilda explains that Qin used his Qiyu technique, and Ares realizes that it was the move that Qin used to knock him down. But he wonders how it works, so Hermes explains that it took the force from Hades' attack, and redirected it back towards him. Hades gets back up, and he asks for Qin's opinion on what makes a king, so he notes that they never bend and waver, and always protect their people. But Hades laughs at his answer, since it reminds him of Poseidon, who had a strong opinion on what a god should be. Hades notes that he won't yield to a king of men, and he swings his bident with all his might, as he tries to crush Qin. He uses his Qiyu to absorb the force of the attack, but Hades overpowers him, and smashes him to the ground. Everyone thinks the fight is over, but Qin gets back up, and he removes his blindfold, telling Hades he's ready to continue their battle. He unleashes a barrage of attacks, and Qin manages to dodge them, but Hades tries to crush him again, so he blocks with his Qiyu. Everyone notices that he's struggling, so Gaul becomes worried, but he blows an air bullet, which hits Hades' shoulder, causing him to get weaker. Qin uses his ability to lift him, and slams him to the ground, but Hades immediately recovers, wondering how Qin was able to counter his attack. They both charge at each other head-on, but Qin shoots Hades with his air bullet, and Hades feels his power leaving his body. His attack misses, and Qin pushes him back, as everyone notices that he was able to pierce Hades' body. He realizes that Qin uses his air bullets to disrupt the flow of his technique, and he admits that he's impressed, while Qin notes that he can see stars in Hades' body. Gaul wonders what he means by stars, so Hilda explains that they're the trigger points, which he targets to disrupt the flow of Hades' chi. but Gaul wonders why he was covering his eyes, so Hilda notes that it's because his ability has a drawback, and Gaul realizes that Qin is injured in the same spot where he hit Hades. Hades realizes that he feels the pain of others when he uses his eyes, and he thinks it's a burden, but Qin disagrees with him, telling him it helped him become the world's greatest king. In another flashback, we learn that before Qin was born, his country was at war with a nation called Zhao, which held a royal named Zeke hostage. But he ended up getting a dancer pregnant, and their baby turns out to be Qin, who was born into enemy territory. Zeke leaves him to return to his country, and his mother didn't care about him, so he ended up being abandoned by both of his parents. His country's army invaded Zhao's capital, and they knew that he was there, but they didn't even bother to save him. 5 years after the invasion, we see that Qin is now 7, but he's still being held hostage by Zhao, and the soldiers don't treat him well, since he belongs to the enemy nation. He is forced to endure the entire country's hatred, but one day, he meets a woman named Qinyan, who notes that she's going to serve as his caretaker and bodyguard. She tells him to show her around, so he takes her to the place where he's staying, and asks her if she wants water. But she tells him he smiles too much, and notes that he's so polite that she finds him creepy, so he apologizes for his behavior. But she just tells him to help her clean up, since the place is a mess, and they start living together. They head to the market, where Qinyan notices that Qin wants to eat steamed buns, so she decides to buy one for him. But the shopkeeper realizes that Qin is with her, so he becomes angry and intentionally drops the bun in front of him. She asks the shopkeeper why he did that, but Qin thanks him for the food and starts eating it, while the people gather around him, since they recognize him as a prince of the enemy nation. They blame him for everything his country did to them, and they all want to kill him, but they can't do it since their king needs him alive. That evening, Qin thanks Qinyan for the dinner, and he notes that he needs to rest since he's tired, but she tells him to wait, and sees wounds on his body. She asks him if the villagers hurt him, but he explains that ever since he was little, he has always gotten injured whenever he saw people getting hurt or angry. He tells her not to worry, since his wounds always heal after a while, but he suddenly collapses, so she realizes that he was just trying to act tough. He notes that he understands why everyone hates him, so he accepts the pain as punishment, and we learn that he developed the instinct to keep smiling, since it softens people's hatred towards him. He thinks they'll forgive him eventually, but Qinyan tells him to stop smiling, since he has every reason to be angry at them. She explains that he hasn't done anything to them, so he doesn't deserve to be treated like trash, and she tells him to express his emotions freely, since he deserves to live his life however he wants to. So he cries for the first time, as he wonders why everyone takes their anger out on him, and he tells her he hates all of them. The next day, Qin wakes up and realizes that Qinyan has already cooked breakfast for him, and she gives him his blindfold, telling him it will help him ease the pain. He promises to wear it forever, and they start enjoying their life together, as he finally learns what it's like to be happy. 2 years later, the kings of Qin's nation die one after the other, and Zeke takes over the throne, so Qin becomes the crown prince, and is allowed to return to his country. He rides a carriage with Qinyan, who tells him they need to part ways after they reach his country, but they suddenly get ambushed by Zhao soldiers, who easily take out his guards. She thinks they want to kill him, since they know they won't be able to reach him after he returns to his country, so it's their last chance to get revenge. He prepares to take them on, but she knocks him down, and tells him to stay out of the way since he's just a kid. She tells him to watch as she earns her salary as his bodyguard, and she takes down the soldiers, but one of them stabs her from behind. She immediately recovers and knocks him out, but their leader cuts her down, and he prepares to kill Qin. But Qinyan suddenly stops him and breaks his neck, and she falls to the ground, so Qin asks her why she sacrificed herself to protect him. She reveals that she had a son who was around the same age as him, but he was buried alive by Qin's country, so she decided to become his caretaker to kill him. But she changed her mind when she got to know him, because she realized that he's a good person, and she thinks he'll make a great king since he can understand the pain of others. She tells him to always walk the path of truth, and become the greatest king the world has ever known, so he promises to fulfill her wish. He begs her not to die, but she passes away because of her wounds, and he returns to his country, where he becomes king at the age of 12. Back in the present, Qin tells Hades he won't lose to him, since he promised Qinyan that he would become the greatest king. Hades notes that he also needs to uphold an oath he made, and he charges in, so Qin fires his air bullets, but Hades manages to destroy them. He uses his knee to strike Qin's head and prepares to finish him off, but he suddenly fires an air bullet, which causes Hades to miss, and Qin kicks him away. We see Beelzebub experimenting on a monster, which manages to break free, but he cuts its arm off and calls it another failure. It tries to run away, but a god slams it to the ground, and we see that it's Adamas. He asks Beelzebub why he keeps experimenting on monsters, so he notes that he wants to create a creature that can kill him, and Adamas realizes he's serious. But he wonders why Beelzebub isn't watching the fight, so he explains that there's no point in watching, since he knows that Hades won't lose to a mortal. Hades tells Qin he's worthy to be called a king, and he notes that he won't hold back, but he suddenly cuts his own chest, and Qin wonders why he would do that. He charges in, so Qin shoots an air bullet, but Hades shifts the position of his trigger point before it can hit him. Qin dodges his attack, and Hades notes that he can easily counter the air bullets if he knows where they'll land, so Ares thinks he covered himself in blood so that he can see the bullets. But Hermes tells him there's another reason, revealing that Hades' blood is special, and his bidon absorbs it, causing it to transform into a spear. Zeus explains that Hades' blood imbues divine weapons with his life force, which causes them to get stronger, but Zeus notes that he'll die if he runs out of energy. Hades thrusts with his spear, and Qin tries to block it, but it destroys his armor and hits him. He manages to recover, but Hades notes that he won't lose, since it's his duty as the eldest to avenge his brother. We see Ares talking about Hades, and notes that he's the most trusted of the gods, since he saved everyone during heaven's greatest crisis, which is known as Gigantomachy. In a flashback, we learn that after Zeus defeated Cronus, he became the ruler of the divine realm, but the goddess Gaia didn't recognize his ascension. She sends her children known as the Gigantes to attack the divine Greek realm, and the soldiers are no match for them, so Zeus tells the gods they need to join the fight. But Hades' soldier reports to him, and reveals that the Titan gods have escaped from Tartarus, the lowest level of the underworld. We learn that the Titan gods are Cronus' subordinates, and if they escape from the underworld, the Olympian gods will be surrounded by their enemies. But Hades calmly walks away, and Poseidon asks him what's wrong, but he refuses to tell him about it. The gods crush the Gigantes, and they start to celebrate, but Poseidon realizes that Hades isn't with them, so the soldier reveals that he went to the underworld alone to stop the Titans. Poseidon decides to check on him, and he sees that Hades has already defeated the Titans, but he tells him he's reckless, since he went there without telling anyone. He explains that it's his duty to protect his brothers since he's the eldest, and tells Poseidon not to worry, since he'll never lose to anyone. Back in the present, the gods cheer for Hades, but Hermes wonders why he's so dedicated to his brothers, so Adamas offers to answer his question. Ares wonders how he's still alive, since he thought Poseidon killed him, so Hermes explains that Poseidon only destroyed his body to teach him a lesson. He reveals that Hades ordered him to help Adamas, so he sent him to Beelzebub, who created a new body for him, and Adamas has been spending his days in the underworld since the incident. He reveals that the reason Hades is obsessed with his brothers is simply because he loves them, and Ares cries hearing this, as he realizes that Hades is a noble warrior. A part of Qin's armor shatters, and Alvir gets injured, but she knows that his injuries are worse, so she asks him if he can continue fighting. He explains that it's nothing, since he's used to feeling pain, and he thinks he can't win the fight, so he plans to put everything on the line with his next move. But she tells him to give her orders since he's the king, and transforms into a divine sword. Hades attacks with his spear, and Qin tries to deflect it, but Hades easily overpowers him and cuts his arm off. Alvir realizes that they can't beat Hades even with their combined strength, but Qin suddenly sees stars above him, and he gets back up. Chunin and the other humans tell him to stop, since they think he can't win, but he notes that a true king never gives up. They're amazed that he still has the strength to fight on, and they start cheering for him, as Chunin realizes that he's been fighting to keep his promise to her. He tells Alvir about his plan, and she thinks it's reckless, but she decides to go with it since she believes in him. Hades thrusts with all his strength, but Qin stands his ground, and blocks it with the tip of his sword, as he activates his Chi-Yu. Everyone thinks he's going to die, as Hades starts to overpower him again, but he fires an air bullet, which hits Hades' spear. It suddenly loses power, as Hilda realizes that he hit the spear's trigger point, and he uses the force he absorbed to strike back, destroying Hades' spear. He manages to stab him, but Hades still refuses to give up, so Qin cuts him down, as he realizes that he failed his brothers, since he promised them that he would never lose. His soul crumbles, and Qin feels the full force of his attack, but he still manages to stay on his feet. He notes that he's grateful to have met Hades, and the humans pay their respects, as Heimdall announces Qin as the winner of the fight. The humans celebrate, and Alvir knows that Qin is in terrible shape, so she tries to carry him out of the arena, but he suddenly collapses. Kojiro and the other swordsmen realize that his body finally gave out, but Chris wonders how he won the fight, since she knows that he was already on his last legs when Hades attacked him. So Kojiro explains that he hit the trigger point of Hades' spear with his air bullet, and notes that it had chi flowing through it, since it absorbed Hades' blood. But she wonders how he was able to block the attack, since he wasn't able to do it before. So the swordsman Asami explains that instead of using his body to redirect the force of Hades' attack, he used his sword to store Hades' power and destroy his spear. They're all impressed that Qin was able to pull it off while he was so injured, and they all recognize him as the greatest king of all time. The gods can't believe that Hades was defeated, and Adamas shatters the door, telling the others that he doesn't care about Ragnarok, so he plans to take matters into his own hands. After that, Heimdall announces that humanity has finally taken the lead, and we see everyone renovating the arena, since it's almost time for the next fight. Qin and Alvir receive medical treatment, and the doctor notes that Qin is in critical condition, so they aren't sure if he's going to make it. Hilda and Gaul leave to check on Buddha, but Adamas suddenly appears, and he asks them where he can find Qin. Hilda refuses to tell him, so he tries to kill her, but Beelzebub suddenly cuts his arm off. He tells Adamas not to ruin the fun, since Ragnarok will be over if he kills her, and Beelzebub notes that he'll ruin Hades' legacy if he takes matters into his own hands. So he decides to leave, and Hilda thanks Beelzebub for saving her, but he tells her to be careful, since there are a lot of gods who can't wait to slaughter all of humanity. We see Buddha resting under a tree, when a man named Kanoki approaches him, and tells him the nurses were worried about him, since he's snuck out of the hospital. He explains that spending time with nature helps him recover, and Kanoki gives him candies as a gift, so he starts eating them, but he tells Kanoki to look for Siegfried, the dragon-slaying hero. Hermes plays a requiem for Hades, and we learn that he's made music for all the warriors who have died in Ragnarok, but he wonders what Beelzebub is doing in his room. So he notes that he wants to ask for a favor, and tells Hermes to pass a message to Zeus, saying he wants to fight in the next round. Hilda and Gaul visit the room of their next fighter, and Gaul thinks that it looks strange, so Hilda tells her she's about to meet humanity's only true mage. They meet a famous scientist named Nikola Tesla, whose inventions are still being used today, and Hilda notes that the humans thought his works were like magic. But he becomes upset hearing this, and reveals that he hates hearing the word magic, since his inventions were made using science. He reveals that he has already completed his research, and notes that he just needs the necessary materials to bring his theory to life, so Hilda calls a Valkyrie named Gondel. She holds Tesla's hands, and tells him she's ready to offer her body for his research, and she uses the Volunteer technique. She releases a shockwave as she transforms into his suit of armor, and he notes that humans have worshipped divine beings for centuries, but he'll prove that the power of science can defeat the gods. In a flashback, we learn that Beelzebub was the loneliest god in the heavens, since they think he was cursed by Satan, so he'll kill anyone who forms a connection with him. But three angels approach him, and their leader Lucifer invites him to join them in the Garden of Eden. Beelzebub tells them to stay away from him, since he's cursed by Satan, but Lucifer doesn't believe the rumors, because he thinks Satan isn't real. His friends agree with him, and they start cracking jokes, but one of them suddenly farts, which makes Beelzebub laugh. He decides to join them, and they enter a restricted area in the Garden of Eden, where they start taking apples. But the guards see them, so they run away, and they eat the apples together. Beelzebub continues to spend time with Lucifer and the others, and he starts enjoying their company as they sing around a campfire. But the next day, Beelzebub wakes up covered in blood, and he realizes that his friends are dead. He wonders what happened, and he recalls how the people were afraid of him, since they thought Satan would rip their hearts out if they formed a connection with him. He realizes that Satan murdered his friends, and he wants to avenge them, so he promises to find Satan and get rid of him. He starts looking into Satan, but the goddess Lilith approaches him and offers to help him with his investigation. He tells her to stay away from him, but she reveals that Lucifer was also her friend, so she wants to help Beelzebub avenge him. He decides to work with her, and they look everywhere, but they still can't find clues about Satan. But one evening, Beelzebub has a dream about Satan, who forces him to watch as he murders his friends, and he tells Beelzebub that he'll kill everyone he loves. He wakes up from his nightmare, and Lilith hugs him as he wonders why Lucifer wanted to be his friend, thinking he would still be alive if he just stayed away from him. So she explains that it's because he didn't like to see people alone, and notes that he secretly suffered from loneliness. Beelzebub promises to avenge his friends, and he tells her he won't let anything happen to her, but he suddenly blacks out. He wakes up as he hears Lilith calling his name, but he realizes that he just stabbed her, since Satan possessed his body after he fell in love with her. So he realizes that the rumors were true, and that he was the one who killed his friends after he formed a connection with them. He apologizes for hurting Lilith, and notes that he should have stayed away from her, but she tells him she has already forgiven him since she loves him. She uses her power as she orders him to keep on living, and she passes away, so he cries and starts to lose it. We return to the present, as Beelzebub wishes that someone would kill him, and he hopes that he suffers a gruesome death. Heimdall announces that it's time for the next round, and Beelzebub enters the arena, as Heimdall introduces him as the representative of the gods. But everyone's afraid of him, since the humans recognize him as the Lord of Flies, and the gods know that he was cursed by Satan. Heimdall opens the door for humanity's representative, but lightning suddenly comes out of it, and it lights up the entire arena. Tesla launches himself into the air, and he lands on the arena, as Heimdall notes that he's humanity's only true magician. Heimdall begins the fight, but Tesla approaches Beelzebub, and tells him their battle will be legendary. But he thinks their fight will be boring, and notes that things won't end well for Tesla, who explains that he won't let the gods win Ragnarok, since he wants humanity to keep inventing. Beelzebub suddenly shatters the ground, destroying the pillar in front of him, and Heimdall thinks he used magic. But Tesla notes that it was science, and the humans don't understand what he means, so the inventor Galileo explains that Beelzebub used vibration to split the ground. Hermes shows Ares how vibrating sound waves can destroy glass, and he explains that it can even make a sharp blade, which Beelzebub uses to cut Tesla's armor. Hermes knows that super vibration is Beelzebub's secret, and he notes that it's impossible to counter, telling Ares his muscles would shatter if it touches him. Tesla is impressed by Beelzebub's ability, and notes that it would have split him in half if he didn't jump away, so Gaul is worried that he might lose. But Hilda is confident that he'll win the match, since his armor was created by the greatest minds in history, and it's powered by Gondal's life force. Tesla charges in, and Beelzebub jumps away to avoid his attacks, as he shatters the ground with his strength. The scientist Thomas Edison reveals that he helped Tesla create the suit, and he boasts about its power, but the other inventors know that he always takes credit for Tesla's work. The humans are impressed by his strength, but he knows that his power is useless if he can't hit Beelzebub, so he charges up his suit, and rushes forward with incredible speed. He hits Beelzebub with a burst of energy, which causes a massive explosion, but Beelzebub blocks it with his barrier. He tells Tesla he's getting bored, so he wants to end the fight quickly, and Tesla uses his electric fists to attack Beelzebub's barrier. But he realizes that its vibration is increasing as it suddenly transforms and smashes him to the ground. He manages to survive the attack, but Beelzebub tells him he's weak, and Gaul wonders why his staff is OP, so Hilda reveals that it's a divine treasure, which amplifies his powers. She notes that it creates a barrier when held with his left hand, but when he uses his right hand to wield it, it becomes a sword sharp enough to cut anything. Beelzebub tells Tesla he'll never defeat him, but he uses his suit to create a giant cage of light, and he suddenly starts floating, as he notes that he's the god while they're inside it. The humans think he's using magic, but Edison explains that it isn't the case, and notes that it's still science. We learn that Tesla worked on an anti-gravity system before his death, but he couldn't create it, since Earth didn't have the materials he needed. But since Gondal volunteered to become his suit, he finally has everything he needs to make it work. He rushes in with a lightning-fast attack, so Beelzebub tries to block it, but he gets caught in an explosion and ends up being injured. Hermes realizes that Tesla can reach his top speed in an instant, so it's difficult to predict his movements, and he charges at Beelzebub again. So he prepares to defend himself, but Tesla instantly changes his direction, and Beelzebub struggles to keep up with him. He tries to block with his barrier, but Tesla still manages to hit him, since his defense vibrations weren't fully deployed. Tesla rushes in again, but Beelzebub almost hits him and prepares to stab him with his staff, but Tesla dashes away. He moves around Beelzebub and counters with a spinning attack, which shatters his barrier, and Tesla hovers around the arena. Heimdall thinks he's doing it to taunt Beelzebub, who manages to dodge his attack, and he prepares to counter, but Tesla suddenly hits him with his electric fist. Gaul starts to celebrate, but she realizes that Beelzebub was able to block it, and he tells Tesla he already knows his tricks, so his attacks won't work on him. But Tesla charges up his suit, as he notes that the gods are about to witness the true power of science, and he suddenly disappears. We learn that after Tesla's death, the US government conducted an experiment based on his research, and it involved a destroyer equipped with Tesla coils. The crew was informed that the goal was to make the ship invisible, but as they activated the switch, they were suddenly surrounded by electricity and vanished without a trace. It reappeared near the coast of Virginia, which was 363 kilometers away, and the members of the US Navy realized that the real experiment was teleportation. But the experiment wasn't a total success, since many of the crew members died, and the survivors suffered emotional damage, so the US Navy decided to bury the research. Back in the present, Tesla appears behind Beelzebub and sends him flying, and everyone realizes that he used teleportation. But Beelzebub knows that he needs to charge up to use it, since if he immediately followed up with his teleportation, he could have already ended the fight. Beelzebub can also tell that he can only teleport to certain spots, since Tesla used his fancy movements to lure him to the place where he can teleport, and he knows that there's a limit to the number of times he can use it. Tesla admits that he's right, revealing that he can only use it inside the cage, and he notes that he needs to charge up the air to create spots where he can use it. He adds that it destroys a Tesla coil whenever he uses it, so he can only teleport 2 more times, but Hilda thinks Gondel will break if that happens, and he'll die since his soul is bound to his suit. Beelzebub wonders why he's telling him his weakness, so he explains that it's because scientists shouldn't withhold knowledge, and Beelzebub finds him amusing. He gets back on his feet, but he suddenly coughs up blood, so Hermes realizes that he's severely injured. He recalls the moment when he went to Hades' castle, and he challenged Hades to fight him, but he knew that Beelzebub was in no condition to fight, since he had been injured fighting the monsters in his castle. Beelzebub admits that he wants Hades to kill him, so he agrees to take him on, but Beelzebub is no match for him, and he gets blown away. He tells Hades to finish him off, and shows him the mark Lilith gave him, explaining that he can't take his own life because of it. He thinks Lilith cursed him since she wanted him to suffer, but Hades believes that it's not the case, and notes that she gave Beelzebub a prayer, because she wanted him to continue living. Hades tells him to reconsider his actions, and notes that he'll grant Beelzebub's wish if he returns in prime condition, but he wonders why Lilith doesn't want him to die. After that, Beelzebub returns to Hades, and notes that he still thinks he deserves to die, but he has decided to continue living, so that he can suffer and meet the worst end imaginable. He thinks it's the only way to atone for killing the people he loves, and Hades gives him his staff, explaining that he always wanted to give it to him, since he thinks it's perfect for him. He notes that he'll watch Beelzebub suffer and meet his end, but he wonders why Hades is so concerned about him, so he explains that it's because Beelzebub reminds him of his brothers. We return to the present, as Beelzebub notes that he has changed thanks to Hades, and he wants to slaughter all humans to avenge him. A dark energy surrounds his staff, as he holds it with both hands, and Zeus realizes that he's about to use his chaos technique, which is so powerful that it was banned in the underworld. Tesla tries to attack him first, but he endures it, and covers the arena with a giant ball of darkness, which destroys everything in the area. Everyone's amazed by its power, and they realize that Tesla survived the attack, but Gaul becomes worried seeing his condition. Adamas notices that Beelzebub is also in terrible shape, since his technique tore his own body to shreds, and Zeus thinks he made a mistake by using it without finishing Tesla. The scientists realize that Tesla sacrificed one of his coils to survive, and we learn that he used it to punch the dark ball with his full power, but it still couldn't save him from the chaos technique. Beelzebub tells Tesla he's about to meet his end, but he's determined to continue fighting, and he notes that humanity will go on forever. In a flashback, we see Tesla talking to his brother Dane, who was known in their village as a genius inventor, and he reveals that he's working on a windmill. He explains that he accepted the job since he wants to make people happy, but he's worried that his design won't work, and he notes that he doesn't want to disappoint everyone. But Tesla tells him there's no shame in failing, since it leads to discoveries, and he notes that it's what drives humanity's progress. We learn that he always looked up to Dane, since he built his inventions with all his heart, but one stormy evening, Dane leaves their house to check on the windmill. But he doesn't return, so Tesla rushes to look for Dane, and realizes that he was struck by lightning. The entire village mourns Dane's death, and the village chief blames himself for what happened, since Dane wouldn't have died if he hadn't told him to build the windmill. But Tesla tells the chief not to cry, and notes that Dane isn't dead, since he still lives in him. Tesla finishes the windmill using Dane's blueprint, but the villagers realize it isn't working, so they think the design was flawed. The villagers forget about Dane, and Tesla shuts himself away, but after 6 years, he finally manages to fix the windmill. So the villagers remember Dane, and Tesla notes that he didn't change the design, but it took him 6 years to figure it out. He realizes that the memory of Dane will live on as long as he continues inventing, so he dedicates his life to science, and continues his research even after his death. Back in the present, Tesla gets back up, and everyone cheers for him, as he notes that humanity will never die. He charges up his suit to create the cage again, and starts moving with ridiculous speed, but Beelzebub still manages to keep up with him and pushes him back. He realizes that he can't move freely, since the arena is full of debris, but he knows that Beelzebub's vibration attacks are starting to take a toll on his body. So he thinks the fight is almost over, but Beelzebub charges in and unleashes a barrage of attacks. Lilith's mark activates, since he seems to be throwing his life away, but he manages to control it with his willpower, and Tesla realizes that he can't dodge the attacks. His cage shatters as he gets hit, and his suit starts to fall apart, so the humans realize he's losing the fight. But he suddenly screams that the technique was incredible, and notes that he was impressed by the way Beelzebub used his ability. He notes that he has finally come up with a solution, so the humans realize that he hasn't given up yet, and they start cheering for him as he charges up his suit again. He charges at Beelzebub, who uses his barrier to defend himself, but Tesla starts pummeling it with a barrage of punches. Beelzebub struggles to defend himself, and Adamas knows that Tesla can't keep it up forever, but Zeus notes that Beelzebub's body is also about to give out. The humans cheer as Tesla continues his relentless assault, and Edison wants him to prove that their science can reach the gods, but he suddenly reaches his limit. He realizes that Beelzebub's chaos technique ruptured his internal organs, and he still refuses to let up, but Beelzebub parries his attack. The humans panic as Beelzebub prepares to finish him off, but Tesla reveals that it's the moment he was waiting for, and he suddenly goes on the attack, so Beelzebub puts up his barrier. But Tesla suddenly teleports his fist, and it appears behind Beelzebub, who realizes that he's about to be hit from both sides. But Beelzebub sacrifices his hand to block the right fist, and he barely manages to avoid Tesla's attack. His staff falls to the ground, but everyone realizes that he was able to stab Tesla, causing his suit to fall apart. He thinks he lost because Beelzebub outsmarted him, but he explains that he simply relied on his convictions, and admits that he could never outthink Tesla since he's smarter than him. Tesla coughs up blood, and as Beelzebub walks away, Tesla tells everyone to hold their heads high, because they will continue to evolve after the battle. His soul starts to crumble, but Gondel smiles as she joins him, and he tells the humans to keep growing and never give up. Heimdall announces that Beelzebub won the fight, but he thinks he would have lost if it weren't for Hades, since he was the one who convinced him to keep on living. After that, Hilda heads to the room where she honors the fallen heroes, and she starts crying for Tesla, but Buddha suddenly interrupts her and asks her why she's always crying when he sees her. He reveals that he was looking for her, since he wants to know about her ex Siegfried, who's currently imprisoned in Tartarus. Buddha wonders if Ragnarok has something to do with him, but she explains that it isn't the case, and notes that Siegfried isn't her ex. Meanwhile in Tartarus, we see two guards talking about how Beelzebub won round 8, and they note that the scores are now tied, but Siegfried asks them about it. They ask him which side he's rooting for, since they know that he's a half-breed, but he tells them it's a tough question to answer. One of them gets annoyed that he didn't give them a straight answer, but his companion reminds him that they aren't allowed to talk to him, so they immediately walk away. But Siegfried notes that he was able to get the information he wanted, since he knows that Hilda is doing well, but he hopes that she doesn't push herself too hard. We see Ares as he notes that he's stressed, since the scores are tied, and he doesn't like the gods' representative for the next round. Zeus admits that he's annoying, but he can't deny his strength, and they see the god Apollo, who's enjoying himself with some girls. Ares can't believe he's relaxing at a time like this, but Apollo calls him his best friend and invites him to join them in the pool. He tries to hit Apollo, but he misses and falls into the pool, and Apollo wonders what Zeus is doing there, so he notes that the next round of Ragnarok is about to begin. But Apollo didn't know that they were still fighting against the humans, so Zeus tells him about the current record, and mentions the gods that they have already lost. He thinks their deaths must have been magnificent, but Ares wonders why he isn't sad, so he explains that there's no reason to feel sadness, since they displayed their beauty by fighting with passion, and he decides to fight in the next round. Hilda and Gaul visit humanity's next representative, and they see Spartan soldiers working out, as Hilda notes that even death can't stop them from training. She greets their king Leonidas, and notes that she wants him to participate in the next round, but he tells her he isn't interested, since he only wanted to fight in the first or last round. But she thinks it's a shame, since she believes that he's the only one who can defeat Apollo, and he suddenly changes his mind, because he wants to fight the god that the Oracle of Delphi worshipped. He notes that he'll defeat Apollo for the Spartans, and the Valkyrie Giru appears, as Hilda explains that they'll work together in the next match. But he reveals that he doesn't like working with people he doesn't trust, and tells her he doesn't like her. She notes that the feeling is mutual and attacks him, but it has no effect, and she tells him her abilities will be useful to him, so he decides to make an exception. Heimdall announces that the next round is about to begin, and he introduces Leonidas as humanity's representative, so the Spartans cheer for him as he walks into the arena. Heimdall introduces the god's representative, and a flash of light covers the arena as Apollo makes his entrance. Heimdall begins the match, and Leonidas immediately charges at Apollo, who easily dodges his attacks. He tells Leonidas he's like a savage beast, but he manages to cut Apollo's hair, so his fans start to get worried, and Ares thinks he's underestimating the humans. Leonidas wants to make him pay for everything he's done, but Apollo doesn't know why Leonidas is angry at him, and tells him to kneel before him. Leonidas calls him an arrogant prick, which makes him angry, since Leonidas didn't use beautiful words to describe him, and Leonidas notes that he hates him more than anything in this world. In a flashback, the Persian king Xerxes led his 300,000 men to overthrow the Greek city-states, and we see a Spartan named Haggis, who's guarding the Elder Council. The elders discuss that they shouldn't go to war with the Persians, since it's the Carnea festival, and we learn that Apollo banned military actions during the event. So the elders think he'll punish them if they fight the Persians, but a counselor explains that they need to act as soon as possible, since Sparta is doomed if the Persians cross the peninsula. But the elders don't care, explaining that they can't defy the Oracle of Delphi, and they tell him there's no need to worry, since they can still defend their land after the festival. Haggis thinks the elders are ridiculous, but he doesn't dare to speak against them, since he knows that everyone believes in the Oracle. But Leonidas speaks up, and calls the elders a bunch of idiots, since they're putting everyone's lives on the line for Apollo. They remind him that he can't start a war without their approval, and we learn that during this time in history, the decision to wage war was left solely to the council. They scold him for mocking their patron god, but he smashes Apollo's statue, and tells them he's ready for divine retribution. They think he defied the gods since he's eager for battle, but he explains that he doesn't enjoy going to war, and notes that he just did it because it's time to fight. He tells them he's willing to fight alone if he has to, and he starts walking away, but Haggis suddenly abandons his post, because his spirit is pushing him to follow Leonidas. Leonidas prepares to head to battle alone, but his 300 Spartans follow him, and tell him they're ready to fight by his side. He warns them that they won't make it back alive, but Haggis tells him they're ready to die fighting, and they all march with him as he prepares to fight Xerxes. They see the Persian army, and realize that they're completely outnumbered, since the Persians have 300,000 men. But the Spartans aren't afraid of them, since they're fighting by Leonidas' side, and they follow him as he fights to the death. Haggis recalls everything that happened, and he notes that they got wiped out, but he never felt more alive in his entire life. He knows that their courage inspired all of Greece to drive back the Persians, so he thinks they lost the battle but won the war. Back in the present, Leonidas tells Apollo that the Spartans almost lost the war because of his oracles, and he transforms his shield into a spinning blade. He throws it at Apollo, who manages to catch it, but Leonidas pushes it forward, and it sends Apollo flying. He tells Apollo not to stand in front of a Spartan if he wants to live a long life, but he immediately recovers, so Leonidas continues to attack him. Gaul wonders why Apollo's hands are sparkling, so Hilda explains that it's because of his divine treasure, which is known as the thread of Artemis, and we learn that it can transform into anything. She knows that he used it to block the last attack, which explains why he was able to recover quickly, and he transforms it into a pair of gauntlets. Leonidas uses his shield to launch a barrage of attacks, but Apollo manages to dodge them, and Zeus notes that his footwork is amazing, since he's the god of boxing. He manages to get in close, and starts punching Leonidas, who struggles to keep up with his movements. But the Spartans think Apollo is a coward, since he isn't fighting Leonidas head-on, and they start taunting him, so he decides to change his tactic. He uses his threads to draw lines on both sides, and tells Leonidas their ring was too big, so he decided to make it smaller. Leonidas asks him what he's trying to pull, so he explains that he's giving the audience what they want, by making the conditions more favorable for Leonidas, but still overpowering him in the end. The Spartans are angry since he's mocking them, and Ares thinks he's underestimating Leonidas, but Zeus notes that he's at his strongest, since he always rises to meet any expectation. Apollo unleashes his ultimate battle mode, but Gaul worries that Gira might lose it, since she's the proudest of the Valkyrie. She tells Leonidas to kill Apollo since he's mocking them, and Leonidas promises to make him bow before them, but Apollo notes that it will never happen. Leonidas' shield transforms again, and he tries to crush Apollo with it, but he manages to dodge the attack, and he uses his threads to stop Leonidas from moving. He charges up his fist and lands a solid hit, so Gaul thinks Leonidas is done for, but Hilda knows that it isn't over yet, since a Spartan's pride is so strong that they won't yield to the gods. Leonidas suddenly counters with his head, and he smashes Apollo to the ground, asking him what it's like to kneel before a human. He reminds Apollo not to stand before a Spartan, since he'll only look pathetic, but he gets back on his feet, and notes that Leonidas looks beautiful when he's fighting, since he puts all of his passion into it. The gods think he's pathetic, since he's acting like an arrogant fool, but Ares knows that it isn't true, since Apollo actually knows his place in Valhalla. In a flashback, we see a monster called the Python terrorizing the village of Delphi, after he was banished from Valhalla for his appearance. Ares' divine soldiers try to stop him, but he easily defeats them, and scares away the villagers in his path. But one day, Apollo appears before him and challenges him to a fight, so Python charges at him, but Apollo defeats him with a single hit. He refuses to admit defeat, and notes that he hasn't given up yet, but Apollo is happy to hear this, and tells him they can continue their fight the next day. Python spends the next few days trying to defeat Apollo, but he's still no match for him, and Apollo asks Python why he keeps challenging him. He explains that he lives a miserable life because of his appearance, and everyone hates him wherever he goes, so he can't lose to someone like Apollo, who was born with every advantage in the world. He tells Python he's beautiful, but he doesn't believe Apollo, since he knows that he looks hideous. So Apollo notes that his appearance doesn't matter, and explains that he's beautiful, since he can look deep into his soul and fight with passion. Apollo tells him they aren't so different, and we learn that he used to be a mediocre god, but he worked hard to develop his skills, until he became one of the 12 Olympians. He tells Python that those who are born beautiful live stagnant lives, since they take everything they have for granted. But the ones born with nothing know themselves better than anyone, so they're aware of their weakness, and continue to change since they take nothing for granted. He tells Python to take pride in his beauty, and he cries as he recalls how he's hurt people, but Apollo tells him it's okay, since he was just defending himself. Python notes that he won't lose to anyone, and Apollo tells him it's what makes him beautiful, so he decides to change his ways. He starts living with the villagers in Delphi, where he builds a temple for Apollo, and he writes down Apollo's motto, which is to always know oneself. We return to the present, as Leonidas tells Apollo he finds him annoying, but Apollo notes that his attack was beautiful, and he can tell that Leonidas' soul burns with passion. So he decides to fight him with everything he's got, and his threads suddenly disappear, but a statue of the goddess Artemis emerges from his shadow. It creates a giant bow for Apollo, who summons an arrow of light as he prepares to shoot, and he notes that he's about to use his supreme technique. Leonidas tells him to bring it on, but the arrow travels faster than the speed of light, and it pierces through his chest. Hermes notes that it's the fastest attack in Valhalla, and Zeus thinks Leonidas has lost, since even the gods can't block Apollo's arrows. Geru strengthens Leonidas' shield, and he tries to block the arrows, but Apollo overpowers him and continues to land his shots. Hera thinks they need to regroup, since they can't counter Apollo's arrows, but Leonidas tells her not to worry, since he'll smash them into pieces. Apollo notes that it's time to end the fight, and he launches an arrow at Leonidas's head, but he manages to send it back, and it pierces through Apollo's chest. Hermes wonders if Leonidas was able to see the arrow, but Zeus knows that he was just acting on instinct, explaining that his past experiences in battle shaped him as a warrior. Apollo struggles to get back on his feet, and Leonidas tells Apollo not to mock him, since he's the king of Sparta. But Apollo starts laughing, as he realizes that Leonidas's pride is what drives him to keep fighting, and he notes that he's starting to like him. Everyone notices that both of them are close to their limit, and Apollo wonders if Leonidas is fighting for the sake of humanity, but he explains that he's just doing it since it's his time to fight. He notes that humans don't get to choose how they are born, but they can decide how they want to live and die, and he mentions that he gathered the world's most selfish men to create a nation. His soldiers cheer for him, as he transforms his shield into its ultimate form, which resembles the shield of the Spartans. Apollo thanks Leonidas for giving him a battle that was able to set his soul on fire, and he returns his bow to the statue, which twists the threads together to form a giant rope. He leans back on it as he prepares to launch himself like an arrow, and we learn that it's a move that he once used to destroy the walls of a city. Ares realizes that he's planning to break the shield head-on, and everyone becomes nervous as the strongest arrow of Valhalla prepares to clash with the greatest shield of humanity. Both fighters charge in, as Apollo transforms his hand into a blade, and he uses it to stab Leonidas's shield, but it ends up shattering. So everyone thinks it's all over for him, but Leonidas's shield also breaks, and Apollo manages to stab him. But Hera tells Leonidas to do it, so he grabs onto Apollo and smashes his face, but he endures the blow, and Leonidas's soul starts to shatter. The Spartans cry as they watch their king's final moment, and they tell him he's the coolest Spartan ever, so he's glad that his men respect him, telling them they're the strongest warriors in the world. Apollo hugs him before he disappears, and he notes that Leonidas and Hera are both beautiful, so they smile as they pass on. Heimdall announces Apollo as the winner, and his fans worry about the scars on his face, but he notes that he doesn't mind keeping them, since they will remind him of his battle with Leonidas. Python sees Apollo leaving the arena, but realizes that he's covered in wounds, and he suddenly collapses, so Python helps him get to the clinic. Chris mourns for Geru, but Kojiro tells her it was a battle to be proud of, and Isami notes that Leonidas died an honorable death, so everyone will remember him as a great warrior. The swordsman named Okita reveals that he's jealous, since he didn't have a death fit for a warrior, and Isami understands how he feels. Hilda picks humanity's next representative, but she doesn't know who to choose, since she knows that they can't afford to lose the next match. Okita volunteers to be the next to fight, and Hilda recognizes him as the greatest swordsman in human history, so she agrees to make him their representative. We see Buddha as he approaches Odin, and he asks him about Siegfried, since he knows that Odin was the one who sent him to Tartarus. Odin's ravens note that Siegfried committed an unforgivable sin, but Buddha knows that he only stole Odin's sword and used it to slay his dragon. He thinks it isn't enough to put Siegfried in Tartarus, since only the worst criminals are supposed to be there, and he believes that Odin sent him there because he wanted to get rid of him. Buddha knows that Siegfried is Hilda's lover, and he thinks she started Ragnarok to save him along with humanity, but Odin doesn't want him to be released. Buddha admits that there are a lot of things he doesn't understand, so he asks Odin to tell him everything, but he suddenly becomes upset, and uses his divine treasure to smash the ground. He notes that anyone who sets foot in his domain will suffer his wrath, and Buddha prepares to take him on, but Beelzebub suddenly appears, as he reveals that he's interested in Buddha's theory. He clashes against Odin, and asks him about the long-cherished ambition that he mentioned in the past, thinking it has something to do with the revival of the primordial gods. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.